Only by such a complete examination will the metaphysical causes behind physical activity be discovered and properly classified. That's a quote that can be found in the book Healing the Divine Art by Manly P. Hall. In today's video lecture, I'm going to discuss some of the views of Manly Hall in regards to the pineal gland. And we're going to also look at Human Design Gate 16, some of the themes associated with the gate, the shadow of the gate, which is indifference. We're also going to take a look at the pineal gland's function. Again, the metaphysical view, as Manly P. Hall describes it in his book, and the scientific view, what can damage the pineal gland, practical ways that we can heal this gland because it's very, very important. We're also going to look at the tarot keys associated with gate 16 and the sign associated with gate 16, which is Gemini. And then we're going to do a little study of the human design chart of Michael Jordan, a very, 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 very famous basketball player. I'm sure you've heard of him, but if you haven't heard of him, he has been described as probably the best basketball player I've ever lived of all time. And I am going to show his chart and talk a little bit about the dynamics of the gate 16 and 48 as how I see them playing out in his chart because he has one of these gates. So if this resonates with you, continue watching. What is the endocrine system? What does it do? And what are its parts? The endocrine system is a network of glands in the body that make the hormones that help cells talk to each other, and they're responsible for almost every cell organ and function in your body. It creates and releases hormones that control almost all processes in your body, coordinates metabolism, growth, and development, controls your emotions, mood, sexual function, and sleep. The parts of the endocrine system, we have the brain. So of course you're up here, and we have the hypothalamus, the pituitary gland, and the pineal gland. In the neck, we have the thyroid and the parathyroid glands. In your chest, the thymus gland, which is located between your lungs, your kidneys. The adrenal glands are sitting on top of your kidneys like little hats. And behind your stomach is your pancreas, and then in the pelvic area. So woman, ovaries, and for a man, testes. The pineal gland is located in the brain. It's the size of a soybean or a pea. And this gland releases the hormone melatonin into your body as it gets dark outside to help you get sleepy. Melatonin may also play a role in protecting against heart-related conditions. The thyroid gland, so we're moving down from the brain, now we're going to go to the throat. The pituitary is the master gland of the endocrine system and influences many of the other glands, especially the thyroid. The thyroid gland is a butterfly shape located in your throat. It controls your metabolism and produces three hormones, T3, T4, and calcitonin. T3 and T4 measure your basal metabolic rate, the amount of energy your body needs to keep up with the most basic functions. The pituitary gland talks to the thyroid gland and tells it to release more or less of its hormones. So now we're moving to the parathyroid glands. So what are they? Again, they're located in your throat. They're located inside of the thyroid gland. And according to the Johns Hopkins Medicine site, these glands produce PTH, which stands for parathyroid hormone, which plays a crucial role in the regulation of calcium, magnesium, and phosphorus levels in your blood. Your body needs to maintain precise mineral levels in your bloodstream because small changes can cause nerve or muscle problems. When these glands detect a rise or fall of mineral levels in the blood, it will make adjustments and secrete more or less of PTH. If more PTH is circulating in the blood, the bones will release additional calcium. Or when the glands secrete less PTH, the bones give up less calcium, and vitamin D levels are also affected. When more PTH is secreted into the blood and more of it is circulating, that can lead to hyperthyroidism. This is also known as an overactive thyroid. When these glands secrete less PTH, the bones don't give up calcium and results in hypothyroidism. This is also known as an underactive thyroid. These glands can become damaged due to a neck injury, neck surgery, an autoimmune disease, or pineal gland dysfunction. When I was 12 years old, I had a disorder called Graves' disease. That's a hyperthyroid. And I didn't have any radiation, but I had to take medicine for about a year. And later on, developed an autoimmune disease called ankylosing spondylitis. And when I had looked at my x-rays with my doctor, they had shown me there was some changes in my spine and there was some calcification in some of my joints, in between some of my joints. So I'm going to come back to that because it kind of signaled something in my head as I was doing the research for this lecture today. Now let's take a look at a metaphysical view of the pineal gland as described by Manly P. Hall in his book, Healing the Divine Art. In metaphysical texts, the pineal gland is called the third eye. It's fibrous and composed of material similar to the filaments of the optic nerve. It's very closely connected with sight, and deterioration of it is frequently accompanied by impairment of the vision. Hall says that disease of this gland can result in one of two ways. One, there can be an unbalance as the result of injury or disorder affecting any single gland or group of glands in the endocrine chain, or it may be damaged through reflex action from the mind. I'm going to quote him here from the book. He says, destructive thoughts with their interrelated emotional states can result in physiological changes in the organic structure and function of the pineal gland. End quote. When the gland is damaged in this way, it tends to throw out the functions of the other glands. So as you can see, the pineal gland is a very, very important gland in our emotional and mental well-being. He mentions that serious diseases of the pineal gland usually involve the rational powers that can be seen in the eyes. This can be experienced as fatigue, lack of coordination, supersensitive, and nausea, to name a few. Additionally, someone could also experience insomnia or the blood may show calcium deficiency. Hall also describes the pineal gland as a crystal floating in a bluish green luminosity surrounded by a glowing magnetic field. The gland and this magnetic field resembles a mini solar system in constant motion around the gland itself. He says, and I'm quoting him here, the small orbital points of light of the gland are the positive poles of the endocrine system. End quote. And each gland of the chain from the pituitary, as I showed you earlier, to the ovaries has its causal nature in the pineal aura. Hall also postulates that science states that the pineal gland function ends at 12 years old and starts to go through a retrogressive process, decreasing in size until it's almost negligible. But results are different with clairvoyant investigation. The gland is active, and under certain conditions, its activity may increase to a marked degree. One thing scientists and ancient sages can agree upon in regards to the pineal gland: the true purpose in the life of the human being is unknown. Now I'm going to talk about calcium just for a moment. As I mentioned, that was one of the functions that the parathyroid glands regulate in the body, that mineral. So calcification, a step back, is defined as a process in which calcium builds up in body tissue, causing the tissue to harden. Calcium keeps your bones strong. It's involved with muscle contractions and communication between your nerve cells. And too much or too little calcium not only affects your bones, but your heart and your brain. Again, going back to the story of when I looked at my x-rays with my doctor and she was showing me how my vertebrae looked, there was calcium deposits in between my lower vertebrae, like the lumbar spine, on my x-rays. And again, coming back to the definition of calcification, it's calcium building up in tissue. And it also can show in your x-rays, in my case anyway, in between your vertebrae. So it's going to make it harder to move, and it's also going to affect your flexibility. Again, that's my case because my upper back is still a little bit stiff. It doesn't hurt. It's not painful. It's just harder for me to turn around. How do you promote a healthy pineal gland? What are some practical things that we can do to help in this regard? So here's some tips for you. Fluoride is added to drinking water to prevent cavities or help prevent cavities. And over 70% of the US population currently receives fluoridated water. So, one of the things you could do is to drink filtered water, purified water. Now, according to Healthline, in one of their articles, I'm going to quote here, adding fluoride to public drinking water is a decades old practice to reduce cavities, but it remains controversial, especially as research reveals more potential downsides to excessive fluoride intake. End quote. Another thing that you can do is use toothpaste free of fluoride. Avoid processed meats like chicken fingers or chicken nuggets. The reason being the process involved of deboning the chicken to turn it into fingers and nuggets can contaminate the meat, adding to higher levels of fluoride. Another thing that you can do is eat tamarind paste or fruit, because that can help remove fluoride, meditation, and one of the best ways that you can do it, and it's just something you can do very easily, is gaze at the rising or setting sun for 15 minutes every day. Now we're going to move into some astrology associated with human design gate 16 before we look at the gate itself. Astrologer Margaret E. Hone says in regards to illnesses under this sign, Gemini, we can find nervous complaints, diseases of the respiratory system, psychological troubles such as general debility through circumstances which are too confining. She says air must move. So Gemini is an air sign, it's mutable air, so it's very self expressive, it's communicative, versatile. The Mercury is the ruler of Gemini, and in the zodiac, Gemini is the third house. And the parts of the body that are governed by Gemini are the hands, the arms, the nerves, the nervous system. We have two nervous systems, right? We have the autonomic nervous system, the parasympathetic nervous system. We have the lungs, respiratory system, and it's also associated with the thymus gland. So let's move into the lover's key 6, because this is the major arcana associated with the sign Gemini. Now, key 6 sits in the first level of the tarot tableau. And the first level of the tarot tableau represents the self, it represents mind, conscious mind. We start with the number 6. I'm also very much into numerology. I'm studying that as well, because that's really important when working with the tarot and when you're doing your readings, because it really can help give more perspective on the answers that you're getting back from the questions that you're asking the tarot. The number 6 represents reciprocation, a mutual exchange, and it's associated with harmony and balance. Now, I'm just going to point out a couple of things to you about key 6, because there's so many things in this key as all of the major arcana keys. But I'm just going to start with I'm just going to mention a couple of things that I think is really important to kind of keep in mind as we move throughout the lecture. On the right-hand side of the card, you see a man representing Adam, and you see on the left-hand side of the card, a woman representing the female principle. I look at it as the right brain thinking, and the right brain thinking, and the woman in this key is Eve, and this is the subconscious mind. And then we go back to the right side of the card, the man representing Adam, conscious mind. We have the conscious and the subconscious minds, and then we have above them an angel, and this angel is representing the super consciousness. You see here also in the hair, we have of the angel, the green, and we have red, the green representing Venus, red representing the planet Mars. I'm not going to get too much into the conversation of that, but I'm just kind of hinting that there's lots of different things, there's desire and there's love involved in all the things that we do and what drives us to do the things that we do. The basic theme of this card is unity, uniting the parts of our mind, the conscious part of our mind, reuniting and in unity with the subconscious part of our mind. We may think that the two parts of mind are really separate, but they're not. They're really equally important. And this kind of goes back to that whole story when you go back to the Bible about the Garden of Eden. And, Eve, she was the bad one. She picked the apple and she gave it to Adam. And Adam, even though he wasn't being forced to eat it, but he took a little bite of it too. And it goes back to just antiquity with this story and how women have always been looked at and portrayed as kind of being the instigator of things, which is totally far from the truth. But this card, again, I'm getting down another rabbit hole. I'm a 1/4 manifesting generator. line one profile it gets into everything. Lots of research, lots of questions about things, how things work. That's how my brain works. So I'm going to try and keep on topic here. Again, this is just a card that represents unity, bringing together in love and harmony of the two parts of mine, the female principle and the male principle. Again, representing duality. And again, Gemini is about duality. It's about two. We find this gate 16 in the quarter of civilization. So the sign of Gemini is located in the human design quarter of civilization. And in their book, The Definitive Book of Human Design, written by Ra Uru and Linda Bunnell, they describe its theme as purpose fulfilled through manifesting, through the movement of spirit into form. This quarter is responsible for building structures and communities that support the form so everyone can develop and can thrive. Now let's move on to gate 16, skills. This gate is located in the throat center, and the throat center is the center of manifestation and expression. This gate is a gate of music and art and dance, but not so much about fine arts, but a talent for living life. The theme of this gate is practicing artistic skills or scientific skill with repetition over and over again, and needing to practice things over and over until mastery is achieved. The 4816 is the channel of the wavelength, and it's a design of talent. Richard Rudd says of this channel in his book, Human Design Circuitry, this talent has to be earned through constant repetition and gradual improvement. You have to wait to find the one thing you can give yourself to totally. If you have this channel definition in your chart, it's about finding something in life you can practice over and over until you can refine and master it. As you can see, the connection with that gate, with the 48 in this channel, it's between the throat and the spleen. And we have to keep in mind that the spleen is not a motor center. So Ra Uru, the founder of human design, he says of this, if you go down to the 48th gate, what you have is a gate of depth that is part of the splenic system, which is not a motor. Due to that, the talent that is inherent in the 1648 is a talent that can be deeply frustrated because it does not have easy access to energy. Now we're going to take a look at briefly at Michael Jordan's chart. And here we can see that he has the open 16. It's a defined throat, but he has a 16 is not defined, and he has the 48 in an open spleen. The not self mind here is thinking. Again, he has the open will. I'm not going to talk about all the open centers, just the will and the spleen to kind of show you where I'm going with this. So he has the open will. The not self of the open will is, am I trying to prove my worth and value? And then the open spleen is, am I holding on to things that are no longer good for me? And with the 48 that he has to find, it's this unconscious feeling that he has that doesn't know enough to do what he needs to do. In this case, I'm going to talk about the 16. Now, the 48 is pointing to the 16. The 48 is projecting. It's not knowing enough. It's inadequacy onto skills. So I don't have enough skills to do what I need to do, right? To get ahead. I have to prove myself in some way. I've got to prove that I can do I can do what it is that I want to do. And I bring this up because of the basketball. So when he was in high school, he tried out for the varsity team. He didn't make it. And everybody says, "Oh, he wasn't good enough to make his high school team." Well, that's not really too true. I researched it and found out that he actually did make a team in high school. He made the junior team. He didn't want to be on the junior team. He wanted to be on the varsity team. And his friend actually ended up getting the spot because his friend was over 7 feet tall. I'm not trying to say his friend wasn't good too, but Michael didn't get the spot because he wasn't tall enough. That was like kind of the main reason why he didn't get on the team. And he didn't like that. Again, looking at his chart, you see he has the open will and he has the open spleen, right? So the open will, again, I have to prove myself, I have to prove myself, I have to prove myself, I have to prove my value, I have to prove my worth. So what did he do? He didn't let it stop him. He went into the gym, he worked out. He's very competitive, and he's been quoted as saying so in a way that's not in a bad way, but that's again coming from that open will, I think. And he had a sick work ethic. I mean, unbelievable. Even in practice, not even on the game on the floor, even in practice, he was an animal, right? He's always challenging his teammates, pushing them, and they just kind of look at him. They could look at him and just shake their head, like, "Oh my God, is this guy for real?" Yes, this is Michael Jordan, right? Now, did he go out and set out to become the most famous basketball player of all time? I don't know, maybe. I don't know Michael personally. I can't say what's in his head, what's going on, but he ended up that way because he found something that he really loved. And he said, I'm not going to let anything stop me from achieving this. And he kept practicing and he kept refining. Remember the gate 16? It's finding what it is that you can be talented at and working at it and working at it and getting better and refining it and practicing until you transcend the level of mastery. And when you look at Michael Jordan play and when he played, you thought you were watching a basketball angel, a basketball god with wings. Especially when he would go in the air and dunk that ball into the net, right? If you see Michael Jordan play. I bring in his chart because, again, he has the open 16, he has the defined 48. He doesn't have that wavelength channel in definition, but remember, we always have the whole chart. So even if it was filled in, it would have been a different dynamic. But I think taking his example of how the gate 16 works and looking at how it works, I think in Michael Jordan's chart, I think really helps to help you understand, especially if you have that 16 and you feel frustration about not being able to get your talent across. Because again, the spleen's not a motor. So that energy is not getting up to the throat directly. Here's a quote from Michael. One, okay, well, there's a couple of quotes I'm going to read. I'm going to read two. So he said, I'm quoting, I play to win, whether during practice or a real game. And I will not let anything get in the way of me and my competitive enthusiasm to win. And I thought enthusiasm was really interesting with that word because the hexagram name of gate 16 is called enthusiasm. Here's another quote from Michael. If you're trying to achieve, there will be roadblocks. I've had them. Everybody has them. But obstacles don't have to stop you. If you run into a wall, don't turn around and give up. Figure out how to climb it, go through it, or work around it. Brilliant. I think that's a real lesson we can all take to anything, whether we have the gate 16 defined or not. Let's move into some of the tarot keys of this gate. And this is the Eight of Swords. So, gate 16, as I mentioned, is skills. It's found in Gemini and it's found in the first decan of Gemini. I'm not going to go too much into astrology if you're not too familiar. I'm trying to keep the video from not going too crazy. And again, I can go down rabbit holes being a line one profile. So, what I'll just say briefly is in the zodiac, there are 12 pieces of the pie, and then each piece of that pie is 30 degrees. Each piece of that pie is further subdivided into 10 pieces of three. So you have 10, 10, and 10. So there's your 30 degrees and your one piece of pie. So we find the Eight of Swords in the first piece of pie in the sign of Gemini. Hope that helps. Every decan in the zodiac has a sub-ruler as well as the ruler of the actual sign. And in this case, the ruler of the Eight of Swords, the sub-ruler, is the planet Jupiter. Jupiter is associated with the major arcana key 10 of the wheel, which is called the Wheel of Fortune. Now, key 10 is found on level 2 of the tarot tableau. If you were to lay out all the cards on a table, you put the Fool on the top, then you put major arcana keys 1 to 7 is one line, 8 to 14 is the second line, and then 15 to 21 is the third line. So the second line is representing subconsciousness or body. So the theme of key 10, I don't have a picture of it here because I didn't want to get too much into the weeds of it, but I'll just say that the direction of the key 10, which is the key of the Wheel of Fortune, is west, and it represents events and activities that are brought you to the present moment. So you need to keep in mind that what you send out comes back to you. That's the reason why I'm going with this little theme here. Let's talk a little bit about this card. So this is the Eight of Swords. It's the suit of the swords is air, represents words, thoughts, and communication. As I mentioned earlier, astrologer Margaret Hone said that air must move. You look at the background of this key, it is gray. There's no clouds. It's not blue. So there's already giving us a hint that something's going on. Pretty heavy stuff going on here. We look at the number 8. which represents rhythm, vibration. There's no rhythm in this card, right? There's no vibration. Something has stopped this figure because we see that this figure is bound and also blindfolded. In the esoteric teachings, the number eight can represent as well the response of subconsciousness to everything symbolized by seven. When we look at this card, this is the Rider Waite Tarot. The cards in the sword suite escalate. So they go from ace, two, three, four, etc., all the way up to 10. So this card is actually encapsulating all of the energy, all of the vibration, all the meaning of all the numbers, right from ace all the way up to the seven of swords. And you can see there's eight swords in here, and we can break it down. But again, that's another day. I want to point out something to here, and I've circled it, the foot. So I was looking at this key, and I was looking at the key 14, which is temperance of the angel in that key. Again, I don't have a picture here to show you, but if you have a tarot pack, you can pull it out. If you have the Rider Waite, you can look at it with me as you're watching this, or look at it later. I noticed that the angel's right foot is in water, but here her foot is on land. And remember, I'd mentioned about the the creative mind, the subconsciousness, representing creativity, right? The creative mind. And we have the left brain representing logic thinking. We have matter here. She's got her foot on the ground. So she's connected to matter. It's like she has really embraced and absorbed all of the things that are going on in her world to heart, literally, and to mind. And maybe this is why she feels paralyzed and can't see a way out. And I think the reason, this is my own take on it, that Jupiter is the sub ruler is because I think Jupiter is reminding us that there's hope. There's a way to see your situation in a different light. I think that the 14, that angel in there is our higher self. So I thought that was really interesting when I was looking at the keys and I was putting the information together for this video lecture. I noticed that, and she's got the left foot in water. If you look at the key 14, you look at the feet of the angel, and you take a look and see what interpretations come up for you. What kind of comes up in your body when you look at that? I think that it's very easy to get lost in what's happening in the world. A lot of stuff going on that's not great, a lot of bad things, but it's also lots of good things too. And I think it's a balance. Again, remember going back to Gemini, it's harmony, it's balance. It's balancing those parts of your mind, that intuition, that creative part with the logical thinking. And they have to be balanced in order to be working properly. Or else what could happen is this. We can go from the eight of swords and a nine of swords. And this is not a picture of someone waking up because they have night sweats from menopause. This is someone waking up in the middle of the night, frightened out of their mind, pure terror, insomnia, can't sleep, anxious thoughts running throughout the mind and cannot fall asleep. Sure, many of us have gone through this situation one way or another. I'm going to talk about the shadow just for a few moments. So the shadow of this gate 16 is called indifference. So Richard Rudd defines this as a lack of interest. And the theme with this shadow is a fear of leaving your comfort zone and embracing change in your life. I'm going to read something from his book, Gene Keys, which I have right here. Just bear with me for 1 second as I grab it. So he says here, when you have the courage to step onto the path of your destiny, two things immediately occur. The first is that you feel an enormous surge of new energy coming from your own enthusiasm. And the second is that you stop compromising your path because of pressure coming from others. So maybe when we look back at the Eight of Swords, maybe there's a lot of stuff going on with this figure of people on the outside putting this pressure on them, because the 16 is a collective gate at the same time, right? It's about people, society, right? Our family, clergy, religion. I wanted to read that to you because I thought it was really beautiful. Now, the shadow is an energy field, Richard Rudd goes on to say in the book, created by all people who aren't doing what they would love to be doing. And why is that? He says it's due to fear. He says, the moment you take a stand and begin to follow your dreams, time becomes your ally rather than your enemy, automatically adapting itself to fit your needs. What's going on with you if you feel like you're that figure in the Eight of Swords? We've all been there. I think what I can just impart to you before we close is just know that everything is what it seems to be, that there is a way out of a situation, and every problem has a solution. We just have to drop in and listen to it in and listen to the answers and listen to our higher self, even if it means that we have to come out of our comfort zone. We might have to tell somebody to get lost, let me do my own thing, because we don't want to be rejected. No one wants to be rejected. No one wants to be criticized. But at the end of the day, we have to follow our hearts, because then if we don't follow our hearts, then we're following other people, and that's not our path. And whether you know it now or not, at some point, if you are following somebody else's path, it will come back to bite you, because you will get to the point where something will escalate within you and you'll just have to stop and pause and think. So I really hope that this video lecture was really helpful, that you learned something about this gate and how it works, about the pineal gland. We talked about the endocrine system. And I like to talk about human design from the lens of astrology and tarot. And I'm so much into those topics because they've helped me so much in my own journey of self discovery to live a life that's authentically me and unapologetically me. And for many, many years, I didn't live like that. And now I'm following my own path. I'm not saying it's easy, but it can be done. We just have to take some courage. And like Richard Rudd says too, step out of our comfort zone and really discover what it is that we love to do and to follow our hearts and do what we need to do. Look at that. Look at the example from Michael Jordan. He knew what he wanted to do and he didn't let anything stop him. He didn't let his height stop him from achieving his dream. Again, thanks so much for watching. If you really enjoyed this video and you resonated with it, please give it a thumbs up, or even better, please subscribe to the channel, because there's lots of things that I like to do for the channel. And if I can grow the channel and you help me grow the channel, then I can bring in more sources and I can have more equipment that I can really use to explain things that I've been learning along this journey of mine of life and human design and tarot and astrology to share with you that could possibly help you as well. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.